Hey everyone, I'm MoistPenguin and welcome to Video Game Breakdown, the show where I talk about video games and their strengths and their weaknesses. So, today, I'm going to be taking a look at Piranha Bytes' newest game called Elex. Spoiler alert, as I will be talking about some of the story of the game. So, to start it off, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the game Elex. Developed by Piranha Bytes, the people who made the games, the Risen games, and the Gothic series. Okay, so about Elex. You start off on this planet called Magellan. It's a few years after this meteor crashes and almost wipes out this super advanced technology people. The meteor itself leaves behind this new element that people use called Elex. And so they find that they can use it to make all kinds of cool stuff, like they can make some cool laser rifles and plasma rifles and swords and armor, and they can use it to create mana, which is used for magic in the game, which is only used by one group of people, called the Berserkers. Now, Elex itself is pretty cool and all, and you people, like, as soon as I start, every single time, hey, oh, go away. So yeah. But, Elex itself has a drawback, see, as it turns some people into these mutant things that are like devoid of emotion and whatnot. And there's this other group called the Albs who use Elex as the kind of engine behind their war machine, because they're these like conquerors or whatever. They're trying to get all the Elex they can for themselves. All right, and so with the Albs, that's where you come in as the main character of the story. Your name is Jax, and you work for the Albs. You're some kind of like high-ranking commander or whatever. It doesn't matter, as all of that is swept away pretty soon anyways, because the Albs, or just your brother named Calex, wants you dead. And so they leave you for dead out in the wild. Eventually your body just completely flushes Elex out of your system. So now you're just a regular human being, completely helpless. You have absolutely nothing to you. You are positively one of the worst fighters in the game. Not gonna lie, it's pretty awful for a long time. So, now that we have all of that, let's talk about the game itself. We'll start off with basic mechanics and stuff. Combat. So combat itself feels kind of clunky, as Jax kind of sometimes feels like he just hasn't ever had any sort of combat training, you know. You come in and you can make a few swings before you actually have to jump out of the way, because okay, so sometimes enemies can be staggered, whenever they're hit with them with a weapon, you can stagger them so you can keep getting consecutive hits on them. Some of them can't be, though. And that's whenever you have to really worry, because as far as I can tell, any enemy in this game can kill you in 1 to 3 hits. I have not had any enemy hit me 4 times, unless I used a health potion to put my health back up to above what I've been dealt damage to. Every enemy in the game that I've encountered so far can kill me in 1 to 3 hits, which makes things really difficult whenever the enemy isn't affected by hit stagger, which is what I call whenever you hit something and it staggers back, like, oh man, I've been hit. That's what I call it hit stagger. So, mixing that with the fact that they're all over the place, it's hard to go anywhere, and most of the quests that you get from the beginning of the game want you to go over across the place to do this quest for this guy, because he needs something done, or it's a fetch quest. And you have to go past all these super insanely powerful enemies. And now, of course, it gives you a way to do this. It gives you a jetpack, which is very slow. While using the jetpack, you move so slow. So slow, in fact, that most enemies can keep up with you on the ground. So it's almost like the only way to escape any form of enemy is to get higher than them. And then even then, some of them have projectiles they launch at you, which can almost kill you instantly. So, again, it comes back to the game being extraordinarily difficult. And I know what you're saying, but MoistPenguin, The Gothic series was difficult. Risen was supposed to be difficult. This is Piranha Bytes. Their games are difficult. I know, but there's a line where difficulty ends and frustration begins. I like difficult games. The Dark Souls series is a difficult game. It's hard, it's challenging, and it's punishing. I love it. But this one sometimes feels like it is unnecessarily difficult. Like, sometimes you just get into a situation where you're trying to get away from something. There's nowhere to jump up to get away from. Or whenever you do get up there, it hits you with this projectile and knocks you back off. Sometimes the enemy will hit you with an attack that not only staggers you, but knocks you prone. So you're having to do all the animation to get up. And before you can even get up off the ground to start moving again, they hit you again and you die. Because Jax is very limited in what he can take in damage. And the biggest turnoff for me on Elex, I know this is the biggest turnoff for Elex for me is the looting. Now, Elex is a sci-fi fantasy action RPG. Now, most RPGs, they'll give you a form of some kind of loot, something to keep the quest going, keep everything interesting, keep you interested in actually wanting to fight something rather than not, which is what I think Elex seems to encourage, which is not fighting anything. Because fighting anything sometimes will usually amount into you getting your ass handed to you royally. Because all of the enemies are super difficult to kill sometimes. Now, there are some of them, once you can finally start using other weapons, you can start doing something. But it just doesn't feel progressive enough. The loot doesn't feel like it's progressing you far enough ahead sometimes. Like, in order to use the second weapon I found in the game, I believe I needed to have a strength of 62 and a constitution of 62. I'm pretty sure you start off with 10 in all of your stats, and whenever you level up, you only get 10 points to put into them. Now, I don't know if you know this, but that means you're going to be waiting a long time to use any new equipment. Because the least that I believe I saw a stat required was 40 something, and that's for something that I could buy from one of the various traders you can find. And again, that's the problem, because in order to use the new equipment, you need to level up. But in order to level up, you have to be able to kill things. Because sometimes the mission isn't just go here, talk to this guy, bring this back to me. Sometimes the missions they offer you are go here, kill these things, and then come back and talk to me. It's where things get kind of difficult, because you only get 10 points a level up, and some things require you to have invested at least 22 points into one stat. And that's one stat. Most of the items in the game, if not all of them, require you to have at least that much in 2 different stats, which requires you to level up at least 4 or 6 times just to use one item. Granted, you can start using more items now because you have those 2 stats up there, which means you can now use, not only can you use the weapon, but also the armor. But it's ridiculous that it requires that much just to use one thing. You would think that even if Jax doesn't have the Elex enemy anymore, I would assume that he would still at least have some form of muscle left in him, or even instinct to know how to use a weapon like that. It just feels like whenever you're playing, the difficulty setting is too high. I don't know. It's just me. And looting, of course, is the biggest killer for me in the game, because I like to get loot. I like to feel like whenever I kill something, I like to feel like I actually accomplished something and I got something from that. Whenever you kill something really hard, okay, let me give you an example. So one of the missions is there are these things called chimeras, which are causing problems for, I think it's a cleric camp or whatever. And so a guy says, hey, if you go kill them, I'll give you some stuff for it. Probably give you some shards, whatever, which is what you use for currency in Elex. So I go over there, and I have my companion with me, who, by the way, is a severe disappointment. I'll talk about some of the characters and stuff in a little bit. But So I get over to these chimeras. This is after I have finally gotten some stats up to where I need them to be to use some, to where I can use the next set of weapons and armor that I have. I haven't got to join a faction yet because I haven't gotten my stuff up with any of them far enough. So I don't have any of the faction armor and weapons, which is very saddening. But anyways, the chimeras come, like, you go over to the chimeras. There's 3 of them. If you're lucky, you can lure one of them out you can lure them out one at a time, because forget trying to fight forget trying to fight them more than one at a time, because they will actually just kill you. You cannot fight them. You cannot fight all 3. You cannot fight 2. You have to fight them one at a time, because they will kill you very quickly. Because they have this charge attack. They charge at you, and if you don't dodge it, then you get knocked prone, and then they hit you, and you die. And when there's more than one, they usually hit you with one of those attacks. So you have to try to lure them out one at a time, usually by using the bow, or if you're lucky enough to have gotten your stats up high enough to use the rifle, using the more silent shot on the gun to lure them out one at a time. So after I have killed all 3 of these damn things, and I loot their bodies, the loot that I get is 62 shards and a fork. And yeah, that's whenever I start feeling like my struggles in the game aren't worth it, you know. And this wasn't, but this is what, like, I have 12 hours in the game. This wasn't at the 12-hour mark. This was at like the 3 or 4th hour mark. I continued to play just to see if it got better. And I even decided that around like 10 hours in, I decided that I was going to test something. I was going to see if the stats actually mattered to how you progressed, and see if they actually made you any better. So I pulled up Cheat Engine, like got a level up, and adjusted the points to where I had enough to max out my stats. And so I maxed out the stats. All of them were at 100. Strength is at, you can apparently move strength to like 103 or 5. I don't know why it gets like 3 or 5 points extra than all the other stats, but it does. And I went out and I equipped the new awesome gear that I had from finally joining I joined the clerics, and I started using their gear. And I was finally able to use all this super awesome gear that I had had for a long time, but hadn't been able to use because it required me to have like, I think like 80 something and 2 other stats and stuff. So I was like, awesome, I can finally use this awesome sword that I got forever ago, and this shield, and this laser rifle that's also like a level 2 or something, you know. Oh, it's gonna be so great. I can finally kill things. And I get out there and I'm fighting something, and it kills me in 2 hits. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what was the point of joining the clerics, getting the faction armor, equipping it, having like, I think it was like plus 45, plus 5, plus some other derogatory number that probably doesn't even matter, because these creatures that I was fighting before did not matter. I was still dying near instantly when I fought something. If I fought more than one thing, I couldn't do it. I would simply get overrun by their attacks. Sometimes they would just ignore the hit stagger and they would continue attacking me anyways, and I would get knocked prone and die. It still didn't feel like progression. You know, it wasn't gratifying to reach those maximum levels. It wasn't even gratifying to have the better equipment, because, and yeah, the better equipment did make a difference. Barely. I did increase damage. I finally was able to actually kill things faster. You know, like on these things called raptors, instead of it taking me like 13 to 20 hits with my axe, it took me like 5 or 10 with the sword. Instead of taking, you know, a bunch of shots, it took a little bit fewer shots. Again, yeah, it does have boosts. Oh no, everything is falling off the desk. You need to not. Damn, stop, hold on. I know I'm getting kind of crazy, but like, whoa. Yeah, it just feels like there's not much progression happening in the game. And it's kind of sad because I really like the area of Magellan. I don't know how to pronounce it. I really liked the area, and I like the sci-fi fantasy mix. You know, there's magic, there's high tech, there's all this other stuff coming together, and I like the setting, and I like the basic story behind Elex, but the mechanics make it almost unplayable for me, just because I don't feel like I'm getting any progression out of my level ups or the loot that I'm getting or that I'm not getting for matters. And the fact that to get the best loot in the game, all you have to do is join up with a faction, you know, that's and that's the only way to get the best loot in the game. This the best loot from the game comes from joining one of the three factions. That's how you get your good loot. That's how you get your good weapons and armor, is joining up with the factions. And I can't remember if you have to buy the good loot or you have to just be part of the faction and they give it to you through the rank up. I can't remember if it's one or the other, but that's how you get the best loot in the game. And with the crafting system, which is meh at best, if you ask me. It just, yeah, that's the way it feels to me. It just doesn't feel like you can, it's not very progression. You don't progress good. That's how the game feels to me. Yeah. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Also, companion-wise, I have this one companion. She is supposedly a berserker lady, and she decided to leave because her magic was so powerful that sometimes she lost control and was decimating things, you know, and she played it up like she was this super powerful mage or something like that. And we get into a combat, and this thing hits her and ragdolls her, and she goes unconscious, and she's useless. So, you know, a lot of help that companion was. Or I was trying to move across somewhere to go fight this thing because I was bored of just running away from every single fight. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to just go fight something. I want to kill something. I want to get some experience from that, get some loot maybe. So I go to fight it. And I noticed that she's not here with me shooting fireballs at it. And I'm wondering where she's at. And she's stuck trying to jump over a rock, but not having enough jetpack fuel or something to get over it. So, you know, it's a lot of fun sometimes. And again, I'm not saying the game is bad. It's just that it's not my cup of tea. The game itself is kind of fun, actually. You know, once you finally get the gist of fighting and all that, it can be fun. But you have to get the hang of the combat. You have to get the hang of, you know, you not being able to fight very well. You have to be able to understand that fighting isn't always the best option. That's not how you always are going to survive. That you're not going to be able to get most places if you just fight everything you come across, because everything is just going to murder you for that. So, yeah. I believe that's everything I wanted to talk about from the game. I think I've got all this stuff down. Let's go over everything real quick. Story, it's alright. We've heard it before. Guy loses his status as a high-ranking official because somebody doesn't like him and betrays him. So now he has to work with the other factions to get up in to get his revenge. Combat, not very great. The overarching story is alright. Characters are meh at best. Character-wise. Like, other characters in the story are kind of meh. At first, I was kind of drawn into them, and I was like, oh, these are so interesting and whatnot. But then, as I kept going through, I slowly started to realize, you know, these guys are kind of, they're all kind of douchey in their own right. And the Berserkers completely and utterly shun technology. They won't have any of it near them. And they won't use any of it if you have it. They want you to throw it into the pit. The Clerics are these super religious, if you're not with us, you're against us kind of guys. The Outlaws are outlaws and their general dickbaggery. You know, it's just the characters and the factions themselves are kind of meh or not very interesting. And it's just, it's just how it is, you know. I just wasn't that interested in all of it after so long, you know. They just slowly became uninteresting, or they repeated themselves as a character too much, and I just didn't like them that much after a while. So that's pretty much all I've got for it. As far as a rating system goes, we're going to do a best out of 5, and I'm going to give Elex a 3 out of 5. So there you go. Elex, 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked it, please leave a like and a comment down below. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more. Maybe go to my Facebook or Twitter, give me a follow, see what's up whenever I upload a new video. Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.